Hi friends, one of the strengths of the DJI Pocket 2 is its ability to make cinematic style videos. But what are the best settings to use to make your videos cinematic then? Well, let's find out. I'm going to show you all the settings that you need to know, so let's get straight into it. Now first you're going to want to pick an appropriate resolution for your video. For the highest quality setting, always go for 4K. But this of course will come at the expense of card space, so always ensure that you have a large enough card available. Now 2.7K may be a compromise for you if you need to maybe post to social media, for example YouTube and other platforms, because these platforms are going to compress the video quality and most people will be watching on a mobile phone anyway, so the resolution of 2.7K is going to be absolutely fine. Of course, recording in 4K will give you the best quality overall and the most flexibility in post-production to make other format videos. So you actually have no card space restrictions, and always opt for 4K if you can. Next, let's talk about frame rate. So the Hollywood standard for cinematic films is 24 frames a second, or 25 frames if you're in the UK or Europe. Now, if you want to slow down your footage in a video editor, to create, for example, slow motion sections, then you could record in a double the frame rate, i.e. 48 or 50 frames a second. Or you could just record in 24 frames per second and then just record in a higher frame rate for any clip that you want to slow down. Now this is going to be quite an advanced topic, so I'm going to create a separate video on this to explain further. So make sure you're subscribed of course to the channel to be notified when that video comes out. Now for the continuation of this video, I'm going to be assuming that it's going to be 24 or 25 frames per second. You're next going to want to first ensure that you're running in Pro mode to make cinematic videos. Now that's going to give the ability to be in control of the exposure and the brightness of the image, so you don't want the camera to be making the decision for you. Now to access the Pro mode, swipe down from the top and then to the right till you see the Pro icon. Toggle this until it's illuminated. Okay, so now that you are officially a professional according to DJI, then back on the main camera screen, you should see the word Pro appear in the top left of the screen. So click on this icon and you should get access to the exposure settings. To make cinematic videos, you're going to need to control the exposure. Now you don't want the exposure to be changing as you move the camera around, so you need to pick an appropriate exposure for the scene in front of the camera. Now first, to ensure the image with the least image noise possible, set the ISO to the lowest appropriate value. Now this will obviously depend on the ambient light level, but try 100 ISO first, and then if the scene becomes too dark, gradually increase the ISO one level at a time. Now Pocket 2 will display how far it thinks you are away from its auto-detected exposure level. For example, it could be 3 stops of light below its detected ideal exposure. However, Pocket 2's ideal exposure may not be what you want, as you may want to make the image deliberately darker to create more mood, or perhaps of a backlighting situation you may actually want to increase the exposure. Next, let's talk about shutter speed. So this also controls the light level as well as motion blur. Now, the general rule of cinematography is called the 180 degree rule, which says that in order to achieve natural motion blur, i.e. blur that appears natural to human eyes, then the shutter speed should be twice the frame rate. So if you're recording in 24 or 25 frames per second, then this means you need to have a shutter speed of 1/48, or the nearest available being 150 for the Pocket 2. Now try setting the shutter speed to this value. Now you may find it's too bright or too dark. If it's too dark, perhaps in a low light situations, then you need to increase the ISO little by little till the scene brightness looks about right, or the exposure is as you want it. And then increasing the ISO to a higher value will start to bring in some electronic noise to the image, so only increase it when absolutely necessary. If the image is too bright, then increase the shutter speed a tiny bit, perhaps 1/60, and if the image is way too bright, then any further increasing of the shutter speed is going to stop the natural motion blur, which will make the footage much less cinematic. Now this is where ND or neutral density filters will be needed to reduce the light coming into the lens and allow setting of the ideal 1/50 shutter speed in bright conditions. Now I have a whole video dedicated to ND filters with the Pocket 2, so there's going to be a link to it up here and also in the description. And I also have another video going into more detail about the 180-degree shutter rule and motion blur, which could be handy if you want to have a look at that. Now of course these settings will help make your video footage appear more cinematic, but waving your camera around randomly without much thought at all is not going to be very cinematic. So you're going to need to know how to make cinematic moves with your Pocket 2 gimbal. For example, the dolly, slider move, the crane, the jib, or the push forward. Now this is a topic for a dedicated video, and of course I already had a video on the gimbal moves for the Pocket 2, which you can then watch next. If you already know these moves, then you are already a step forward to make cinematic videos. And you can watch my cinematic school videos on mastering these cinematic moves. Once again guys, thanks very much for watching this video and for subscribing to the channel. You have, haven't you? Because it really helps the channel to grow, and I need every single one of you guys to help me get there, so much appreciated. Other than that, take care and I shall see you soon.